There's a great uncertainty as to whether philosophy is an art or a science. It is an art in its purposes and its production, but the means, i.e., representation and concepts, it has in common with science. It is a form of poetry. It can't be accommodated in any existing category. Therefore, we must invent and characterize a species for it. The description of the philosopher's nature. He knows through creating poetry, and he creates poetry through knowing. He does not grow. I mean, philosophy does not take the same course as the other sciences, even though some of the philosopher's domains are gradually transferred into the hands of science. Heraclitus can never become obsolete. It is a poetic creation beyond the limits of experience, the continuation of the mythical drive, also essentially in images. Mathematical representation is not part of the nature of the philosopher. Overcoming knowledge through myopic forces. Kant was remarkable. Knowledge and faith. There's a most intimate relationship between philosophers and the founders of religion. The concept of the philosopher and the types. What is common to all? He has either sprung from his culture or is hostile to it. He is contemplative like the visual artist, compassionate like the religious man, and casually oriented like the man of science. He tries to let all the sounds of the world reverberate in him, and to place this comprehensive sound outside himself into concepts. Swelling to the macrocosm, and at the same time composed contemplation, like the actor or the dramatic poet who changes and at the same time keeps his composure in order to project himself outward. The philosopher alongside the man of science and the artist. Restraining the drive for knowledge by means of art, and the religious drive for oneness by means of the concept. He's just saying he wants to restrain the religious drive and replace it with oneness by means of concepts. How Buddhist is that? Okay. There is no philosophy apart, separate from science. In both, thinking occurs in the same way. The reason why unprovable philosophizing still has value, indeed usually a greater value than a scientific proposition, lies in the aesthetic value of such philosophizing, i.e. in its beauty and sublimity. Even if it can't prove itself as scientific evidence, as a scientific edifice, it is still present as a work of art. But is it not the same in scientific manners? In other words, it is not the pure drive for knowledge that decides, but the aesthetic drive. The poorly supported philosophy of Heraclitus has greater artistic value than all the propositions of Aristotle. Okay, last one, yo. This is the Nietzsche. When one is thinking, one must already have what one seeks, through the imagination. Only then can reflection judge it. Reflection does this by measuring it against customary sequences that have often stood the test of time. What is actually logical about thinking in images? A sober man needs and has little imagination. In any case, this production of forms, which then bring something to the memory, is artistic. The memory highlights this form and reinforces it in the process. Thinking is highlighting. There are far more sequences of images in the brain than are used up in thinking. The intellect quickly selects similar images, and the selected images again produce another abundance of images, and the intellect again quickly selects one of those, etc. Conscious thinking is only a selection of representation. It is a long way from there to the abstraction. So he's saying, look, I underline this one a lot right here. This right here, it says, we have, first of all, the force that creates the abundance of images, and two, the force that selects and emphasizes similarities. So he's saying there's a spiritual force that happens to give us imagery and ideas and concepts, but it's that second force which helps us communicate, create, and connect the dots. Nietzsche is saying that scientific value has less value than philosophical imagination, because even if a scientific proposition is wrong, it's still it would be wrong completely and we never think about it again. Philosophical propositions are a work of art, and that it's just an opinion. So he's saying science doesn't give any value to man, and it just enhances the drive for knowledge, whereas philosophy restrains the drive for knowledge because you're actually creating instead of wanting knowledge that was already in the past. And it sort of emphasizes, the Ubermensch, be the hero of your own novel philosophy. So, I mean, that's what I think.